Shoya from A Silent Voice shows us the struggles of finding it within yourself to change for the better. Because the one thing stopping Shoya from changing was himself. Not because change itself is difficult, but because of the doubts, the fear, the guilt, and most importantly, the past that keeps haunting him, made worse by his own thoughts. It's a struggle we've all faced at some point in our lives. When we want to change, we have to face the uncomfortable truth about ourselves, all the things that we hate about ourselves. Yet, in some way, there's comfort in staying that way. And that realization is terrifying, isn't it? But Shoya's story isn't just about his struggle. It's about finding a reason to wake up every day and keep on trying to prove to himself that he is worthy of growth and redemption. But what was in his past that made it difficult for him to change in the first place? Shoya was carrying the weight of his sins from the past, bullying a deaf girl named Shoko, even going as far as throwing her hearing aids multiple times, when all Shoko ever wanted was simply to be friends with him. But what he did quickly came back to him. The tables were turned as his friends backstabbed him, pinning all the blame onto Shoya. And now, he was the victim. Throughout this period of his life, he was forced to believe just how terrible he was. And soon, the exaggerated accusation that came out of everyone's mouth became Shoya's truth. Because a lie told 1,000 times becomes a false truth. He was made to believe that he was nothing but his worst mistakes, and that he couldn't change. And just like with many people in real life, his past became his identity. Whether we like to admit it or not, there's always that one thing in our past that defines who we are today. It might look something like getting a failing grade, then believing you aren't smart enough so you never try again. Or maybe someone important in your life left you because they said you're not good enough, so you close your heart to everyone, believing you're too inadequate for anyone. The scary part is, our minds latch onto these beliefs and apply one person or maybe a few people's opinion about us as the undeniable truth. That everyone sees us the same way we see ourselves, and it's hard to let go of that identity, isn't it? Shoya spent enough time being criticized and believing that he would always be wrong. He believed people were constantly judging him, making up internal dialogues about how others hated him. He feels like every movement he makes is a mistake. So the only natural response to that is to put everyone else above him. Even when he was being stepped on, he didn't fight back. To him, he deserves all the bad things that happened and will happen to him. This is evident when Shoya tries to reconnect with Shoko years after the bullying, hoping to make amends, only to be met by her little sister, Yuzuru, who isn't exactly welcoming of his presence. When he and Shoko met at a bridge trying to talk, he accidentally dropped her old notebook into the river. As both of them jumped in after it, Yuzuru snapped a photo of him, framing it as an offense. And so he was suspended for a week. Even then, he never blamed Yuzuru. In fact, when he found her lying weakly in a playground, he took her home and fed her, even going as far as to walk her home in the rain. And that just shows how little he thinks of himself. It's a mindset that's very hard to get out of. Believing you don't deserve better. Believing that you have to atone and live with the consequences of your mistake forever. It's what gets us stuck. And it's a heavy burden to carry. A burden that eventually turns into self-hatred. Shoya's hatred for himself grew. And as each day passed since the incident, he decided he wanted everything to end. If he couldn't change, then what was the point of living anymore? That's what he thought. It was only through his mother that he was forced to cancel his plans, as she was made aware of his son's attempt. And it's clear how much of an effect self-hatred can cause. It clouds a person's ability to see clearly, and it becomes a barrier not just to change, but to love and accepting love in return, leading to further isolation. And yet, even with this perpetual cycle of self-sabotage, he was able to find connections. Connections that made him realize what friends really are. Not only did Shoya become friends with Shoko and Yuzuru warm up to him, He also met Nagatsuka after helping him get rid of a bully trying to steal his bike, sacrificing his own in the process. Through him, Shoya's thoughts of if he was even worthy of connections were silenced. Nagatsuka broke through Shoya's walls, and he showed him that being a friend doesn't require any sort of objective criteria. What truly matters is the connection that both of them share, and that's enough. And it didn't stop there. Through a series of unexpected events, he was able to rekindle the connections he once lost. For the first time in a long while, Shoya felt like he was part of something again. A group of friends, simply having the best time of their lives. That was until he stumbled upon Kazuki, the one who bullied him back in the past. Painful memories that were suppressed by his newfound connections come resurfacing, and he goes back to the way he was before. The Shoya who loathed himself. In a way, aren't the things we do today there just to distract and numb our pain away, just as Shoya did? We scroll through social media, indulge ourselves in pleasure, and grind ourselves away toward our goals, just so we can avoid the things that we hate most about ourselves. And that hate, once internalized, begins to seep into the way we treat other people. In order to protect himself, Shoya pushed everyone away when they were all fighting, because he knew that this would have never happened if he never bullied Shoko. But in doing so, he also pushed away the one friend who genuinely cared about him, Nagatsuka. All that was left was Shoko and Yuzuru. You see, it's easy to shut everyone off and retreat from situations you can't handle. Even I do that sometimes when things get overwhelming. But sometimes, that space we create for ourselves becomes too comforting, too peaceful to leave. And before you know it, everyone's moved on, moving forward in life while you're just left behind. But no matter what happens, the path towards healing only moves forward. Shoya must have realized that. He pressed on, even when it felt like he lost everything. Everything started from within, and the only way to end it is also from within. Shoya's journey wasn't about others letting him off the hook. It's about finding the strength to accept the fact that he made a mistake, that he's not perfect, and that's okay. That realization makes it easier to move forward, because now you realize that all this time you have control. You have the power to change. And it begins with forgiving yourself. And that's what Shoya did. When he forgave himself, the things he needed to do became clear. To start his change from internal to external, to ask Shoko for forgiveness, to say sorry to the people he pushed away, and to repair all the damage he had done. We spend our lives mulling over the mistakes we've made, the beliefs we've internalized, and most importantly, the kid within us that never healed. It's never easy to let go of these things, especially when you spend the majority of your life repeating these negative images to yourself. But change was never instantaneous. Just like many things in life, it takes small, consistent effort, even if it's hard sometimes. But maybe it's time, to leave that part of yourself behind. It's hard to say goodbye, but you have the power to make that choice. Let go of the kid you used to know.